The sea was dying. That night, Amina had a strange dream. She was swimming deep beneath the waves, surrounded by glowing creatures and singing voices. A beautiful mermaid appeared before her.
You don't come. Welcome, oh. I beg, before we go begin this story, we go scatter your head. Make you do it in. Subscribe, sharp. Like the video, drop your sweet comments. No, they form. Now beggar the bego. Okay, now, sitting well.
One stormy night, the waves crashed hard against the shore of a small African fishing village. The wind howled like a wild animal, and rain poured down like rivers from the sky. Suddenly, something small and fragile washed up on the beach. The villagers rushed out to see what the storm had brought. Wrapped in seaweed and glowing faintly under the moonlight, there was a tiny baby girl. No one knew where she had come from. An old fisherman, Baba Kofi, gently picked her up. "She's a gift from the sea," he said softly. The villagers whispered rumors. Some feared the baby was a spirit. Others thought she was cursed. They named her Amina and raised her like their own. But from that first night, the ocean seemed to watch over her. Its waves softly singing a secret song only she could hear. Amina grew into a curious child. She loved the ocean more than anything else. Every day she ran to the shore, her feet dancing in the sand and water. But Amina felt different from other children. While others played happily, she often sat alone, staring at the sea as if waiting for someone to call her. Sometimes her eyes sparkled like the waves, and her skin shimmered when the sun touched her. Her mother worried. "You must be careful near the water," she warned. "The sea is beautiful but mysterious." Amina didn't understand why she felt this strange connection. Deep inside, the ocean whispered secrets only she could hear, calling her home. The village was small, and everyone knew each other's business. But when Amina grew older, whispers started to spread. "They say she's not like us," the women said behind closed doors. "She must be touched by the spirits." The elders told old stories of mermaids, mysterious beings with the body of a fish and the face of a woman. They said mermaids could be kind or cruel, and they guarded the ocean's secrets fiercely. Some villagers grew afraid of Amina, believing she was a mermaid child sent to bring trouble. They warned her to stay away from the water, but the sea's call grew louder in her heart. One evening the sky darkened early. The wind whispered warnings, and the waves grew restless. Amina stood on the shore, feeling a strange chill. In her mind, she heard a voice, a soft but powerful song rising from the deep. It was a warning. The next morning, the village woke to find the sea angry. Fish were scarce, and the water near the shore had turned dark and strange. Amina knew something was wrong. The sea was in pain, and so was she. Just when the village needed peace, a stranger arrived. He was a tall man in fancy clothes, with cold eyes that seemed to see everything as money. "I will build a factory here," he announced. "It will bring work and money to this village." The villagers were excited at first, but Amina felt uneasy. She looked at the sea, which seemed to shrink back as the stranger talked. "This factory will change everything," the stranger said, smiling. But Amina knew some changes could be dangerous. The sea's warning had only just begun. The very next day, the stranger's workers arrived with chainsaws and heavy machines. They started cutting down the tall mangrove trees that protected the village's shore. The mangroves were home to many fish and small creatures. The villagers watched nervously as the forest disappeared one tree at a time. Amina ran to the water's edge, feeling the sea pull away from the shore. The ocean's voice was quieter, sadder. "Stop," she begged the workers, but they only laughed and kept cutting. The sea was losing its shield, and Amina's heart broke. Days passed, and the river near the village turned dark and oily. Fish floated lifeless on the surface, and the village's fishing nets came back empty. The water smelled bad and made people sick. Mothers worried about their children. and the fishermen feared they would lose their homes. Amina sat by the water, her feet cold and numb. She reached out and touched the dirty water, feeling a sting in her heart. The sea was dying. That night, Amina had a strange dream. She was swimming deep beneath the waves, surrounded by glowing creatures and singing voices. A beautiful mermaid appeared before her, a queen with eyes as deep as the ocean and a crown of coral. "You are our child," the queen said softly. "The sea chose you to protect it." Amina woke up, her heart pounding. Could it be true? Was she really part of the sea's magic? She knew what she had to do. When Amina told the villagers about her dream, many did not believe her. Instead, they grew afraid. "She is cursed," some whispered. "The sea is angry because of her." Even her closest friends began to avoid her. Amina felt lonely, like she was standing between two worlds. But she refused to give up. The sea was calling, and the first time Amina's tale appeared, she was both terrified and amazed. The shimmering blue scales sparkled under the moonlight, each one catching the glow of the waves. She moved her new tale through the water, and it felt natural, like she had been born to swim this way. She dove beneath the surface, and everything was alive. Fish swam alongside her, their colors brighter than she had ever seen. The water felt warm and welcoming, as if it had been waiting for her all along. When she finally returned to shore, her legs were back. But she knew she was no ordinary girl anymore. She was the sea's child. Amina began to visit the water every night when the moon was high. Each time, her tale appeared, and the sea taught her something new. She learned to call the fish with a hum, to calm waves with a gentle hand, and to breathe underwater as if it were air. One night, a school of dolphins surrounded her, clicking and singing. They seemed to guide her deeper into the ocean. At the bottom, glowing shells opened, releasing light that swirled around her. A voice echoed in her mind. "Your powers grow, but so does the danger." The next morning, the greedy man's workers brought more machines to the shore. Amina stood on the sand, her beads warm against her skin. She raised her arms and whispered to the sea. The waves began to rise, higher and higher, until they crashed at the workers' feet, forcing them back. The villagers gasped, some in awe, others in fear. The greedy man narrowed his eyes. "So, you're the one standing in my way," he said softly. Word spread quickly. Some villagers saw Amina as a savior, protecting the sea that fed them. Others believed she had brought the trouble, angering the spirits. Even Baba Kofi, who loved her like his own, looked worried. "Child, the sea gives and the sea takes. Be careful what you ask of it," he warned. Amina's heart was heavy. She wanted to save her home, but she didn't want to lose the people she loved. That night, as Amina swam under the moonlight, the Mermaid Queen appeared again. Her eyes were stormy, her beaded crown shining brightly. "The factory must be stopped," the queen said. "If the sea dies, so will the village. But beware, the man who builds it carries a darkness deeper than you know." Before Amina could ask more, the queen sank into the shadows, leaving only the cold whisper of waves. The greedy man wasted no time. Huge machines rumbled on the shore, grinding and roaring as workers poured concrete into the sand. The smell of smoke and oil filled the air. Amina stood at the edge of the water, her heart pounding. The mangroves were gone, the fish were disappearing, and the water looked dull and lifeless. She clenched her fists. "Not while I still breathe," she whispered to the waves. That night, Amina slipped into the water and let her tail shimmer into existence. She swam far into the ocean and began to hum, a low, deep song the sea understood. The waves grew stronger, rolling toward the shore. By the time they reached the factory site, they crashed so high that they smashed into the machines, sending workers running. The greedy man stood firm, soaked to the skin, glaring at the ocean. "You'll have to do better than that," he said. The next day, Fishermen who worked for the greedy man set out in boats with nets. But they weren't looking for fish. They were looking for Amina. She hid beneath the waves, holding her breath. But she could hear their voices above. Catch her, and the boss will pay us well. A cold fear ran through her. They wouldn't stop until they caught her, or destroyed her. That night, Amina swam deep into the ocean and called for help. One by one, the sea creatures came. Dolphins, turtles, giant fish, even sharks. They circled her, clicking, singing, and splashing in agreement. She explained the danger, and they promised to help her protect the ocean. For the first time, Amina felt she wasn't fighting alone. The greedy man's factory was almost complete, and the water grew worse each day. But now, the village began to notice the truth. The fish they depended on were nearly gone. The children were getting sick from the dirty water. Some villagers stood beside Amina, blocking the workers from the shore. Others still feared her, but they could no longer ignore the damage. The battle for the sea had begun.